Good morning. Super early here. 5 a.m. In fact, my crazy brain woke me up, as it always does, with a stupid suggestion. It said, Craig, you got to go and talk about Ozempic and Saxenda on YouTube at 5 o'clock in the morning and how it relates to alcohol addiction. And I thought, yes, what a great idea. So that's why I'm here. Because we have something quite interesting on our hands here. This could be quite exciting. Something I want to talk about today could be groundbreaking, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. First of all, if you've just stumbled across my channel because you're worried about your drinking, here is the first and best thing you should be doing. Go to my website right now, stopdrinkingexpert.com, and sign up for today's free quit drinking webinar. And I will talk you through the process that I've been teaching people for 13 years that has helped hundreds of thousands of people to quit drinking without any silly gimmicks, without any dangerous medication, without any embarrassing group therapy. It just works. But it'll take me a while to explain why it works. Go do the webinar. I'll even give you a copy of my best-selling book, Alcohol Lied to Me, as a gift just for turning up. Why do I give a gift just for turning up? Because I know what people are like. And something like 65% of people who sign up for the webinar actually show up, because that's just the way we are. As you know, we mean to do well, but quite often we don't. How many books have you got on your shelf that you bought with the good intentions to read, but so far you've not got around to it? That's just human behavior. So 6 months ago, I started writing about these new miracle drugs for obesity, the likes of Saxenda, which has the active ingredient liraglutide, also Ozempic, which says semaglutide. I will come to it. Wegovy, we've got Ozempic, all these new drugs that have become viral and gone around the world on YouTube and on TikTok. Lots of influencers, lots of famous celebrities are using these drugs to apparently lose dramatic amounts of weight, and they're being touted as miracle drugs. Now, I'm always suspicious when anything is described as being a miracle. Doesn't matter in what sense. If someone says it's a miracle, I think there's a 99.9% chance it isn't. I'm also pretty skeptical about our capacity as a species to do medicine. I know a lot of people think that medical science is a wonderful thing, and you hear people all the time saying, oh, isn't medicine wonderful these days? And isn't it amazing what they can do? I tend not to feel like that, mainly because there are so many things that are commonly wrong with us as a species that doctors can just do nothing about. You go to the doctor and they say, oh, you've got this. I'm afraid there's nothing we can do. Things like, arthritis. You get osteoarthritis. The solutions are garbage. And also, I'm pretty skeptical because our medicine seems almost to be having a joke at our expense. The side effects are nearly always the polar opposite of what they're supposed to be doing. We have painkillers with a headache side effect. We have depression medication with a side effect of suicidal thoughts. It's just, you couldn't make it up. And I just don't know how they get through the testing process. You're scientists working in a lab creating a new medicine to help with depression. And at some point in the testing, you realize it causes people to kill themselves. And rather than going, well, this is a disaster, you go, probably be all right. We'll just put a warning on them. We'll put a massive sheet of paper in the box in tiny 0.8 type font, and we'll put warning may cause suicide. That'll cover it. How is this happening? So 6 months ago, when I first wrote about Saxenda or Ozempic, I was pretty skeptical, especially when it came to alcohol addiction. Now, something's changed. I've been doing this for 13 years, and I have my online course, but I also work one-on-one with people. And that means I meet a lot of people every week who have drinking problems. And they come from a vast, range of lifestyles and lives. And I can tell you for certainty, getting a drinking problem is not a reflection on your IQ. This is not about stupidity. I coach consultants, I coached doctors and surgeons and lawyers and entrepreneurs and even billionaires. I've coached several billionaires in the past. They've got everything in life. They're in total control of everything apart from this one thing, the alcohol. So don't beat yourself up if you have a drinking problem and say, well, how can I be this stupid? It's got nothing to do with intelligence. I can say that for certain. And what I've noticed over the last 6 months is I'd say about 10 to 12 of my clients have told me they're also taking a GLP-1 agonist, which is the fancy term for Ozempic. And I noticed something a few months ago. People who were taking this drug for obesity reasons, who just also happened to have a drinking problem, they started to tell me that when they're taking the drug, their cravings are almost non-existent. They've never felt anything like it before. And if they do relapse, it's kind of like this tiny blip. They have a glass of wine and then go, oh, but I don't want any more. They don't do what they used to do, as in what a relapse meant was they would go like 3 weeks, 4 weeks without having a drink and then just completely fall off the wagon, drink a bottle of vodka in one night. That's what relapse means. But these people have been telling me, I relapsed last night, but I only had half a glass of wine and I didn't like the way it made me feel. And at first I thought this is just coincidence. They're just, they're in the right mindset now. They're in the zone, they're focused. But the more people started saying this to me, I started to think, this is feeling a little bit like, is there smoke without fire? And so I started to do a little bit of research and look into it. Now, there's not a lot of data on these drugs because they're new, and that's part of the reason I was so skeptical about them 6 months ago, because they're so new that we don't really know what the long-term consequences of them are. And I was saying, look, you should stay away from them from that point of view. They come with a black box warning, which is the highest level of warning you can get from the regulators. And the reason these drugs have this black box warning is because in rodents, they've caused certain types of thyroid cancer. Now, the scientists are saying, look, the way cancer forms in rodents is very different to the way it forms in humans. You can't make the comparison. You can't make the assumption. But still, my gut feeling is if it causes cancer in rodents, I don't want it in my body. So that's another reason why I was skeptical. So there's not a great deal of research. So when I first started looking 3 months ago as to whether these drugs helped with alcohol addiction, I couldn't find anything. But what I'm starting to see, and again, this kind of also gives evidence that what I've heard from my clients is not coincidence, as I'm starting to see anecdotal evidence appearing on very respected sources like The Lancet. The Lancet is a British medical paper, comes out monthly, and it's pretty much up there. It's top of the league when it comes to quality reporting on medical issues. So this is on the Lancet website, and it's talking about these weight loss drugs, Saxenda, Ozempic, Wegovy, Vincenza, all of these ones that are basically all brand names around 2 different types of drug. There is liraglutide, which is a Saxenda, and semaglutide, which is Ozempic. So let's take a look at this and see what it says. So the summary of this research is around GLP-1 agonists that have been found to reduce alcohol drinking in rodents and overweight patients with alcohol use disorder. However, the probability of low semaglutide doses, an agonist with high potency and affinity for GLP-1R to attenuate alcohol-related responses in rodents and the underlying neuronal mechanisms is unknown. So this is basically saying this is just anecdotal. They don't have the gold standard of research to back it up. There is no placebo double-blind research to back up this article. But what it has found, excuse me, In male and female rats, acute and repeated semaglutide administration reduced alcohol intake and prevented relapse-like drinking. Moreover, fluorescently labeled semaglutide was detected in NAC of alcohol drinking male and female rats. So this is basically the chemicals in your brain that deal with pleasure, the pleasure receptors and your satiety control and things like this. So what they've basically discovered is that these drugs, semaglutide, reduce alcohol drinking behaviors, possibly via a reduction in alcohol-induced reward and NAC-dependent mechanisms. So you don't get that euphoria, that buzz of your first drink. You know that you when you've been thinking about drinking all day and you finally have that first drink and you always go, like that release. This is a bit like naltrexone. You don't get that. You get nothing. So you look forward to this event all day and you do it and you get nothing. And also it tastes bad and makes you feel ill and you think, well, why am I doing that? So there's not a lot of data here, but the statement is pretty clear. This is not asking the question as to whether these drugs help with alcohol addiction. It's pretty much stating that they do, that they just don't have the full data to back it up at the moment. But my reading of this report indicates that they expect to have it. They expect to see that evidence backed up in data. And I agree. I think this is something very exciting and very interesting, because if this does what it says it does, then it could help a lot of people. And yes, there are risks with these drugs. There is a cancer risk. But I'm going to argue that the cancer risk from drinking is greater. I'm going to argue that the cancer risk from obesity is greater. And if you are an obese person who also has a drinking problem, I'm going to argue that there's no comparison in risk. I don't have the data to back that up. I'm not a doctor. I'm just going on what I'm what I'm hearing from other people and the bit of my own research. But this is really interesting. I will do some more reading on this and I'll keep an eye on it. And I will speak to my clients who are on these drugs specifically about how they believe it's affecting their alcoholism. But I wanted to flag it up for you because this is the first time in 13 years of doing this that I've genuinely been excited at a drug that has come on the market that seems to help. Because if you look at what we had up until this point, we had antabuse, which has been around for probably 50 years. Antabuse just makes you allergic to alcohol. So if you take antabuse and you drink alcohol, you have a violent allergic reaction. It's horrible. But of course, you can choose not to take the tablet. I've tried antabuse. Back in the day, I was on antabuse, and all that happened was I started giving myself days off. I started taking it on a Monday, but then waiting a few days and then having a drink. It got silly. We have naltrexone. Naltrexone was actually designed for heroin users. It's an opioid inhibitor, stops you getting that buzz from alcohol. But the side effects are pretty horrendous, makes you feel pretty poorly, or did with me anyway. And also, it doesn't sound like it's as good as what these GLP agonists are doing. And apart from that, there's nothing else. We don't have any other drugs that help effectively with alcohol addiction. So this feels like the first significant thing that people are telling me, wow, that really works. So this could be exciting. Let's keep an eye on it. I'll keep you updated when I find out more, and we'll watch this one carefully. I'll just put a little disclaimer here at the end in. It's still a dose-dependent tool. it won't help you with your alcohol addiction if you don't take the medicine. So if you're taking Saxenda or Ozempic and you find that your cravings for alcohol have diminished significantly, great. But what's going to happen when you stop taking the drug? Because eventually you will have to stop taking the medicine. You will reach the weight you want to be at. It's not healthy to be injecting this stuff for the rest of your life, for sure. So what's going to happen when you stop taking it? And the answer is your alcohol cravings are going to come roaring back unless you deal with the underlying reason why you turned to alcohol in the first place. All right? Everyone I've ever met who has a drinking problem is not drinking alcohol because they want to drink alcohol. They are using it to escape reality in some form. They're using it to escape a problem in their life or some sort of pain. So if you're taking this drug, don't rest on your laurels. Don't put your feet up and say, I'm cured. You're not. You are in remission. And you should use that period of remission to do the course and work on the reasons underneath your drinking. All right? Thanks so much for watching. Exciting times, and we'll speak soon.